He was once the shy boy in the schoolyard who stumbled over his words so badly classmates whispered that he looked like an alien. Decades later, the same man would become a near-universal laugh machine. The face of Mr. Bean, a comic who proved that silence could travel farther than any punchline. But fame hid a costly truth. The stage cured his stutter and gave him a voice, yet the very characters that freed him also left him exhausted and uncertain. This is the story of Rowan Atkinson. How childhood pain became comedy, how brilliance was built on discipline, and how a man who made millions laugh quietly battled the parts of himself no one saw. Let's start at the beginning. Rowan Sebastian Atkinson was born on January 6, 1955, in Consett, County Durham, in northeastern England, the youngest of 4 boys in a family whose rhythms were shaped by routine and quiet. A baby brother, Paul, died before Rowan could remember him, and that early loss cast a shadow over a childhood that would be both sheltered and difficult. By the time Rowan was 5, he had a severe stutter. School was not a place of easy friendships. It was where he learned how brutal children can be. Teachers recalled him as a shy boy with a rubbery face and a speech problem. Classmates teased him mercilessly. One remembered being told the boy looked like an alien. Little wonder he spent much of his time alone. Here's the twist that would define his life. When Rowan stepped onto a stage, that stutter disappeared. Completely. The voice that failed him in the classroom found its footing in performance. For a young boy whose sense of self had been eroded by bullying, this was nothing short of a revelation. The painful obstacle that had narrowed his world became the doorway to one of comedy's most unusual talents. Rowan was bright. He took his science A-levels seriously and, in 1973, entered Newcastle University at 18 to study electrical and electronic engineering. Most people assumed he would become an engineer, methodical, careful, predictable, but the theater tugged in a different direction. He graduated in 1975 and moved on to Queen's College, Oxford, for postgraduate study. His research was rigorous, even technical, on self-tuning control systems. He began a PhD, but never completed it. By then he'd felt the pull of performance too strongly to ignore. It was at Oxford where the quiet, awkward student became the performer who changed rooms. He joined the drama club and a review group, and there he met Richard Curtis, a connection that would alter both their lives. Curtis remembers a funny-looking, seemingly withdrawn young man standing at the edge of rehearsals. Then Rowan performed, and the silence in the room broke into laughter. Sketches about driving and mime revealed an instinct for physical comedy and timing that felt both old-fashioned and revolutionary. In August 1976, Rowan took a step every performer remembers. He went to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. The show did well. For a man who had once thought the world might hold only engineering labs and silent corners, the theater had become home. He published his thesis in 1978, yet every spare hour on campus leaned toward stagecraft. The conflict between engineering and comedy, logic and absurdity, would follow him, even into later decisions about electric cars and environmental debates, but the stage had already staked its claim. Rowan's first major professional break came with a BBC radio show in 1979 called The Atkinson People. He played characters who were sometimes eccentric like Sir Corin Basin or a faux French philosopher. The show wasn't a blockbuster, its slot wasn't built for comedy, and audiences were small, but critics noticed. And while the world wasn't yet ready for the full force of his oddball genius, Rowan was learning the craft, how to shape silence into reaction, how a raised eyebrow could speak volumes. Then came rejection. Between 1978 and 1979, the BBC rebuffed him repeatedly. Auditions and interviews became torture because the stress made his stutter worse. At several low points, Rowan considered quitting and returning to engineering. But the discovery that his stutter vanished inside characters gave him a way forward. If speaking as Rowan made his throat seize, then he would speak as others, exaggerated, wordless, grotesque, humanized caricatures who let him move freely. He teamed with friends from Oxford like Angus Deaton, who often played the serious foil to Rowan's wild creations. That partnership gave him confidence the safety of someone else to play against, and time to grow without the full glare of the camera. By the end of the 1970s, he'd returned to the Edinburgh Fringe with a mostly silent show that recalled the great pantomime and physical slapstick traditions of Buster Keaton and Chaplin. Some audience members walked out confused. Others, though, recognized something rare, a performer who used his face and body like instruments. He had found a language that crossed culture and language. Those who saw him early would go on to help him when television finally came calling. Television did come, though fitfully. A 1979 pilot, Canned Laughter, featured an embryonic Mr. Bean among other characters, but it didn't get picked up. In the same year, he joined a satirical show, Not the 9 O'Clock News. The show started poorly, critics were harsh, viewers were thin, but it also acted like a crucible. The writing sharpened, the performers hardened, and Rowan found an environment where odd ideas could be tried and polished. It was on that show, and in a remarkable sketch called Gerald the Gorilla, that he began to draw wider attention. Disguised in a gorilla suit, Rowan played with intelligence and rage in a way that made audiences laugh and gasp. The show earned awards and, crucially, respect. At the start of the 1980s, something else changed. Instead of being punished by his stutter, Rowan learned to weaponize his silence, to make it expressive, dangerous, hilarious. Blackadder, the historical sitcom he co-created with Richard Curtis in 1983, pushed him in a new direction. The first season was expensive and unwieldy. Critics were mixed, but the show evolved. By its second series, with Ben Elton on board and the focus tightened, it became sharp, dark, and very funny. Rowan played Edmund, a schemer of comic guile, surrounded by brilliant players. Miranda Richardson, Hugh Laurie, Tim McInerney, Tony Robinson. Improvisation and trust among the cast created a chemistry that felt effortless, but as always, beneath the surface was work and discipline. And then came the character that changed everything, Mr. Bean. A creation years in the making, perfected in university sketches and refined across radio and television, Mr. Bean first appeared as his own series in 1990. The genius of Mr. Bean was simple and terrifying. A largely silent man navigating the modern world with awkwardness and determination. Speech was minimal, physicality was everything. The result was universal. No translation required. Whole countries laughed without needing subtitles. Mr. Bean became a global phenomenon, a magician's trick of performance that made the ordinary ridiculous and the ridiculous sympathetic. But here is the paradox at the heart of Rowan's career. While Mr. Bean made the world adore him, the role drained him. He described the physical and emotional toll of embodying a character that demanded relentless, precise contortions of face and body. For someone who had escaped humiliation through performance, the pressure to deliver, to be the sitcom that travelers in Tokyo, Mumbai, and Sao Paulo all understood, was heavy. He admitted to feeling like a fraud at times. He looked forward to filming rapping. He told interviewers that playing childlike roles past a certain age felt, to him, a little sad. It's rare to find a performer who admits that his most beloved creation was also a burden, but Rowan did. The films followed. Bean, the 1997 movie, did huge box office numbers worldwide and introduced Mr. Bean's world to a still larger audience. Even so, the demands intensified. To protect his health and sanity, Rowan later adapted Mr. Bean into animation. He supplied the voice and let animators handle the physical extremes. That move offered both relief and longevity. Children discovered the character anew, and Mr. Bean outlived the man's need to perform every painful pratfall himself. Beyond Bean and Blackadder, Rowan's career is peppered with surprising turns. He had a comic supporting role in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, a small scene that became iconic. He voiced Zazu in Disney's The Lion King, a performance he initially resisted, but that wound up being memorable for millions. He returned repeatedly to the spy parody Johnny English franchise, allowing him to marry action and his old physical comedy instincts in a slightly less punishing format. Rowan's life outside acting has its own drama. He met Sunetra Sastry, a makeup artist, while working on a television series in the late 1980s. They married in 1990 and had 2 children, Lily and Benjamin. For 24 years, they made a life together. But the marriage ended amid public scrutiny in the mid-2010s. Rowan then began a relationship with Louise Ford, a much younger actress, and their daughter Isella was born in 2017. The age gap and timing attracted tabloids and moral outrage in some quarters, a reminder that even a comedian who delights an audience can find his private life turned into public spectacle. There were moments when Rowan's quiet steadiness surprised even his closest fans. In 2001, he and his family were aboard a private plane in Kenya when the pilot fainted mid-flight. Rowan had never flown a plane, but he took the controls, kept the craft steady, and helped everyone land safely. An episode as cinematic as anything in his films, and one that revealed reserve and courage beneath the comic persona. Rowan has also not been shy about his beliefs. In 2012, he gave a speech in Parliament defending free speech, arguing that the tendency to label dissenting or offensive words as criminal was a dangerous slide. The speech was controversial. Some praised his defense of liberty, others accused him of defending hurtful rhetoric. The debate highlighted yet another aspect of his public persona. He is not merely a comic mime, he is a thoughtful, sometimes contrarian voice on matters of principle. And then there's the surprising wrinkle of his private passions. He's long been an early adopter of electric and hybrid cars, and he has used his technical background to comment on environmental technology. In 2023, he published a piece that questioned the environmental impact of electric car batteries, a piece that drew both interest and criticism. Some saw him as a skeptical, informed voice, others accused him of spreading misleading claims. Either way, it was another reminder. Rowan's mind has always balanced logic and imagination, the engineer and the entertainer.